Hey friends, welcome back to the Happy Whole You podcast. And today I have an amazing guest with me, Miss Jennifer Woodward.
I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
Yes, well, Jennifer joined me on a live panel we did in Bakersfield, California, and we talked about mindset and nutrition.
Mm.
And you have an amazing specialty in perimenopause. And so let's just jump right into it. Share with everyone the 411 on who you are, how you help save women's lives so we don't kill our husbands and others around us when we're going
Yeah, right? Protecting marriages everywhere.
right.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Woodward. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I have my master's degree in integrative nutrition. I've been in the perimenopause space for 9 years now. And of course, like we're all here for a reason. So obviously, I am dealing with perimenopause and I've been kind of in hormones for a long time for that reason. So I have 4 kids. I am married to essentially my high school sweetheart. He was in college. I was in high school. It's been a long time, whatever. Uh, but we've been together a really long time, 4 kids, and I had my kids really close together. And so that coupled with this, perfectionistic type A, gotta get it done background, put me into early perimenopause. So it was around the age of 33 that my hormones just started falling apart. They started tanking. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor asking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I sleep? I can't lose weight. My hair's falling out. My mood is all over the place. My period's super weird. And my doctors were like, well, here is Prozac and here's the pill.
Oh, like the two
Yeah.
go-tos, antidepressants and birth control.
Yes. I thought, okay, I don't think I'm depressed. And I certainly, I want more babies. And so I
Yep.
didn't think either one of those things were the answers. And so, as so many of us in this space do, went searching for answers for myself, came across a program called Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And I was hooked because we base all of our results on lab testing. And my husband, he's in finance. So he's, you got into finance for 25 years. And he's like, oh, we have data. We're not just guessing. It's like, I'm in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You got to be able to track it and see it and all of that. So, what do you think is a really big misconception when it comes to hormones?
Yes, I think that so many women get told you're just getting older. It's just a part of what goes on in a woman's life, and they don't feel heard. And so the misconception is that you have to go through this transition in your 30s, 40s, and 50s without help, without hope, and without hormones. And that's not necessarily the case. I'm a big proponent of hormone balance for women.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think too, even like with younger people, it's like almost like we've accepted like if you're having your period, cramps and bloating and like headaches and all this is quote unquote normal.
Right.
But it's the way I look at it is no, this is biological feedback that something's off and something's not right.
Gosh, I love that. Yes, 100%. Something we talk about all the time. And for women, particularly around this stage in life, so many things are caught up for them and with them. And when we see, periods getting worse, cramps, clotting, PMS, irregular periods, generally it's due to the effects of that declining progesterone, which happens right around the age of 35, 40.
Mhm.
And progesterone is a really protective hormone. So it helps with sleep, it helps with mood, it helps with your period. And as you do get older, and this is one of the facts about getting older, progesterone levels are going to start to decline. But then also estrogen levels start to go a little bit wonky. So one of my favorite researchers and writers, Dr. Laura Briden, women's hormone expert, she says, perimenopause is kind of characterized by wildly fluctuating levels of estrogen.
Mm.
So a couple months, like out of the year, we can have really high estrogen levels and then we can have really low estrogen levels. And so seeing those heavy periods, the cramps, the clots, that when our estrogen to progesterone balance is really discrepant. And so it's important for women to try to, use natural means to balance out that high estrogen, which we can do a lot through food and environment.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I'm also curious, like, I don't know if there's any studies on this, most likely not, but like when you have those months, like I wonder if it's like, around Thanksgiving, November, December, January, like in the darker months and the more sugar months, are women's hormones more out of whack than versus like summertime when you're getting sunlight and all that. I don't know that.
I mean, absolutely. And I'm sure there are studies on circadian rhythm and hormones,
Yes.
right? So you're really, and we've discussed this in the panel, circadian rhythm, when we aren't getting outside, when our bodies don't realize what season it is, what time of
Yes.
day it is, it throws off our main three hormones. So cortisol, our stress hormone, insulin, our fat storage hormone, and leptin, which is our hunger hormone. It tells our body that we're full, essentially.
Yes.
And that starts the cascade that tells the rest of the body what to do because the brain controls the ovaries.
Yes.
The brain controls what's going on with estrogen and progesterone. And so, absolutely, there's a correlative effect. If we're inside, if we're on screens all the time and it's getting dark at 4:30,
Right. Oh gosh.
yeah, our hormones are going to be messed up.
I was at the beach and I saw there was a sign. I was walking with my mom and there's a sign that said, "There's nothing like having lunch while you're watching the sun go down."
3 o'clock in the
Yeah, it does because it gets so dark. It's like, oh man.
right.
Okay, so what are just some basics that you suggest that women do, if they are, say they're indoors all day or whatnot, like what are some little tips that you can give them to work on that circadian?
Yeah, I love this. So, first tip is free, and it's my favorite. Before you check your phone in the morning, just go outside. If it's snowing, if it's raining, if it's foggy, you are still getting UVA and UVB rays, and that's so important just to start that circadian rhythm, your proper circadian rhythm. And the cool thing, this is a little aside, you already know this, but women not only have this circadian rhythm that's a daily rhythm, but they also have an infradian rhythm,
Yep.
which is their 28-day rhythm. Like, there are lots of infradian rhythms, but women particularly have this 28-day menstrual cycle. And so if that 24-hour circadian rhythm is off, that 28-day infradian rhythm is going to be off. So just getting outside first thing in the morning before you check your phone can pay dividends.
Yeah.
This is really funny. So let me tell you this quick story. So I got really heavy into circadian rhythm training just this last summer. So every day I'm out on my porch first thing in the morning, reading my Bible, having my quiet time, drinking my tea. And in a month, 1 month, my cycle synced up with the moon. I ovulated on the full moon. And ever since then, I've been ovulating on the full moon, which for a nerd like me, I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Oh, that's so fun. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I am not really great at tracking my cycle.
Yeah.
Like I know like around, okay, the first week of the month, but I've never been like really great about tracking it. But I should totally start doing that. But I do go out like in the morning. I always go out and depending on what time I'm out there, wherever the sun is, because my backyard looks at the mountains and then like I get just like a great view of the sun coming up. But I'll always look to the side of the sun. I don't stare at the sun. Like let's be honest. If someone's out there telling you to look directly at the sun, no, we're not doing that, you guys. We're not, that far out. But I look to the side of the sun. And then also when it gets colder, because I like to ground and earth myself bare feet in the grass, I always say, keep your feet in the same spot and go to your breath to like warm. Like I always think of I'm warming the earth and then I can like get through it with my feet because it can get pretty cold. Even in Bakersfield, California.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the fog and the wet grass,
Yeah.
like it's chilly. I go out there in my bathrobe. I'm fine with it. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My neighbors, I mean, I'm sure they've been like, that's the crazy lady next door in her underwear. I mean, I've gone out there in my underwear, bra. I mean, you don't want to be my neighbor. And then I have, I'm from Michigan. And so I have some friends there and some of the followers that are in winter wonderland this time of year. They're like, Anna Marie, what can I do? And so one of the things you can do if you're not going to put your feet, obviously, in the snow, is that you go up to a tree and you put your bare hand on the tree. So anything that's rooted into the earth can really help. But
Love it.
yeah, I mean, such a free, easy thing to do.
Free,
Right?
right?
Just be outside. I mean, we can't discount being outside. That's so important.
No.
So
Well, and usually I tell my women too, when do you usually have an energy lag? So most women, it's around 10 a.m., 2 p.m.
Yep.
And so instead of going to sugar or coffee, or if it's like 4 p.m. wine, go outside because we're energetic beings, we're electrical beings. And so I tell them, you need a battery charge and you have a free battery outside. It is the sun. So if it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, just make sure you're taking these regular breaks. Like I will even have a lot of my girls, because they're busy professional working women, moms, I'm like, put an appointment on the calendar with yourself because you're not going to break an appointment with a client.
Right.
So don't break an appointment with yourself.
Hear this, ladies. Hear this.
5 minutes at 10 a.m. You just go outside, you do a little bit of breath work, take your shoes off and ground,
Yes.
and then you're set for the next couple hours without coffee and without sugar.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's good. I sometimes on my recommendations I write out for people, it is 5 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
at noon, and then before the sun goes down.
Yes.
And then I'll also have them tap right here on their chest by their collarbone. This is your K27 kidney meridian. And this actually gives you energy. Just think of King Kong just like banging his chest,
Okay,
right?
yes.
So that's a little extra you can
I get it.
give your gals too, because it does work. And if you rub that spot and it's tender, that's actually another sign that energy is getting stuck there. So, because I play in the meridian and chakra fields as well. So,
Yeah.
it impacts our biology.
Thank
But-
you. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So when the link between hormones and food is like insane. So what are some foods that you're like, ladies, you cannot not eat these things? Like this is very important. And what would those things be?
This is my favorite, the most passionate area. And I will tell you this. So I was just dealing with my daughter this morning. She has a UTI. She's sick again. And I told her, what are you eating? Like, it's not that you have a, antibiotic deficiency.
Right.
It's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with you, but your body doesn't have the raw materials it needs to heal.
Really,
And
Mom? Like, really? What do you know?
Can someone else tell this to my daughter?
I know. Like,
Her friends trust me. She just doesn't trust me. So I told her, I'm like, Rebecca, I'm heating up some soup for you. You have to eat meat. You have to eat protein. You have to eat fiber, and you have to eat vegetables like this. And she's an athlete. She knows these things.
Yeah.
But she's also, 17. Yeah, she wants to look cute in her formal dress, and she's busy. And so I tell her, from a very ancestral perspective, if you strip away all social media, strip away television, strip away magazines, what have people been eating for eons, right? I love the work of Dr. Weston A. Price, and he was, a dentist in the 1930s. He went from indigenous people to indigenous people to indigenous people and found out the factor that brought all of these really healthy people groups together was animal protein, animal products. So, and these people were naturally eating nose to tail. And what he found is, he called this, is a politically incorrect term, but he called it white man's diet. Well, white man's diet crept in. These were things like coffee and sugar and processed foods and trans fats. He was a dentist by trade. So he started to see that people's dental palates became malformed.
Yeah.
And he found a very clear association between a malformed dental palate and mental illness, which is very interesting, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. These things were happening in the 1930s. And so that was the seminal work that really got me into, nutrition as medicine back in 2015 when I read it. And it's a tome. It's thick, but it's a great book. And so my short answer to your question is animal products, meat, right?
Yeah.
I'm all about plants. I love plants. One of my very best friends is an ethical vegan, and I adore her. And I understand if it's cultural or if it's religious, right? Or if you just can't tolerate it, that's reasonable. But if you are a perimenopausal woman or an 17-year-old girl and you get sick all the time and your periods are shit and you just feel off, like, I would really encourage you, eat animal products 1, 2, 3 times a day, and your hormones will thank you.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I just think from the brain perspective of, my geekness, where I go to is always the brain, and proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids impact neurotransmitters. So that is not surprising that, that people have mental health issues. And I think too, now, people, I don't think, at least in my experience with women, one, they're not eating enough protein.
Right.
And the proteins that we're eating should not be fried in trans fat. And, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I do, your source of food is really important, and getting that in, like, I love that you said 3 times a day, and because it's really easy, like for me, it's easy to wake up and, my morning mushroom coffee to put my protein in there, a little bit of collagen, and do that. And then it's like I go to work and then I'm working and working.
Yeah.
And then my assistant's like, Anna Maria, are you going to eat today? I'm like, oh yeah, that's like probably a good thing to do. So I mean, I'll get myself, or it's like I have something to eat and then get so caught up in what I do that time just flies. And then I eat a big dinner,
Yeah.
so it's like, I have to like remind myself, like, come on,
Yeah.
but, yeah, so food is so important. Now, what do you say? Because I hear this. This is interesting. Like women will say, "Oh, well, I thought I couldn't eat fruit because there's sugar in it." I was like, "Well,
And reasonably so. I mean, obviously, we wanna be careful with sugar, but one of the taglines in functional nutrition is no one ever got fat from eating fruit, right?
yeah,
And I think, yes, it's wise to monitor your blood glucose. It's monitor or wise to make sure that you're not overeating like sugars in other areas. If you're eating, Twix bars and like powdered oatmeal, and then on top of that, you're eating like 8 bananas a day, you
yeah,
might have a blood sugar issue.
yeah,
But if you have been, in the keto, carnivore, low carb background for any length of time, you probably have a fear of fruit. And that is just wrong for women's hormones. So one of the other researchers I love to talk about, Dr. Ray Peat, he's the father of pro-metabolic nutrition, and his tenets for proper thyroid health are fruits, collagen, and root vegetables, because
uh,
these are the foods that really stimulate thyroid hormone.
yeah,
And so for women in perimenopause, especially who have hormone issues, which are directly related to the thyroid, right? Have energy issues, have period issues, and have weight issues, it's actually counterintuitive not to eat fruit because our thyroid needs it. And when our thyroid's fired up, our
yeah,
metabolism is fired up,
yeah.
right?
Oh, that makes sense. Wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay, so what do you think is like out there that people are eating, but they're not realizing it's not great for you? Like, you know how there's like all of these advertisements that, like, for example, Gatorade, like it gives you electrolytes and it's like just eat a piece of watermelon, throw some salt on there, and you're good to go, right? Save yourself $4 and high fructose corn syrup and food coloring. But what do you see out there that like maybe women are intaking, but they're not like they literally think it's helping them, but it's actually hindering them? Are there any foods out there, anything that you're seeing a trend right now?
Yes. Okay. So I love this question too. And I'm going to put 3 foods forward. Okay. Number one is Lara bars. Lara bars are not breakfast. Protein bars are not breakfast. They're not lunch. They're not dinner. Number two is acai bowls, because, well, you talk about
Yeah.
whole fruit is fantastic because it's packaged up with fiber.
Yes.
Fiber is the antidote to sugar, right? So if you're eating an apple or an orange or a banana, totally fine. If you're eating an acai bowl, that's just full of sugar upon
Yes.
sugar upon
Yes.
sugar. So, like, for instance, my sweet, lovely daughter, gosh, I love her so much. And
Oh,
she's
the
like,
kids
my
love
person.
acai bowls.
Yeah.
They
She's
love
like,
yeah.
can you buy me an acai bowl? I'm like, girl, it's $13
Yeah.
and it's pure crap. Like,
Yeah.
you're just eating crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks pretty and it looks healthy. And if you eat it after like a steak, it's
Yeah.
probably fine. But if
Right.
that's your lunch,
Yeah, the protein.
no.
Yeah.
So that's like the problem I have with women thinking these things are healthy when really, that in a vacuum is not necessarily
Mhm.
healthy. The third thing I see women doing are using vegan protein powders as their sole source of nutrition, especially in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not against protein powders. I actually love a good nose to tail carnivore like protein powder. They can be really powerful, a good source of protein. But 10 grams of vegan protein plus a lot of ground up fruit
Yeah.
and plant milk, that's not the best thing for hormones, for blood sugar balance, or for mental health, which
Yeah.
are really, really important for women, in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big fan too of like eating, like chewing.
Food.
Like, yeah, like eating food and chewing. I mean, I do believe in supplementation, from what I see. I mean, I have my own supplement line, nutraceutical line, and I created that out of a need because our food isn't what it used to be. But the first like supplements are to supplement
Yes.
a good nutrition or bad nutrition, but the whole aspect of chewing is really important. So, I mean, yeah, I do put the collagen and the protein in my morning drink, but then there's that aspect of chewing that I think that is really missed that we need.
Okay, I just love that you bring this up. This is so fun because we know, like, digestion begins in the brain, right? The cephalic phase of digestion. When you think about food, when you're
Oh my God.
yes, your body
People
starts
don't
to cram
realize
digestive, and it's the same there, and the body prepares to
Yeah.
eat. If you're just slurping down a smoothie and then carbohydrate digestion, right, begins
In your mouth, right?
and so you're bypassing this important part of digestion. If your pancreas is not releasing enzymes, if your stomach isn't releasing hydrochloric acid,
Yes.
now you're going to have constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, all this distension that so many women are struggling with, and they don't realize if they just ate, some steak and eggs for breakfast, they wouldn't have any of those problems later in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's your permission, like eating steak and eggs for breakfast. Yeah. I love that you say that because in school they teach that digestion begins in the mouth. And I always say, no, it begins when you start thinking about food.
Yes.
So those I've had a lot of clients that have a really poor relationship with food. It's like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat that. Oh, I shouldn't. Oh, it might make me fat." Oh, like, it's almost like literally if you think it's gonna make you fat, it will.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that like,
right.
because then but if you're, like, having this, challenge with food, thinking about it, "Should I eat it? Should I not?" By the time you go to eat, your body's like, "Are we eating? Are we not? I was recruiting, enzymes to the gut, and then now I took them away," and, like so, yeah. So, ladies, like, thinking about food is, it needs to have, like, a positive mindset around that. So, mindfully eating and all of that. So, yeah, I think that's
I love that. Well, and even like mindfully preparing your food. Again, like
yeah.
I'm so big just on ancestral nutrition. Obviously, like I don't want to live 300 years ago. I'm very happy with my
Yeah.
plumbing. I like my performance fabrics, but from a health perspective, obviously our ancestors, they just were healthier. Yes, they died of disease, but they didn't have metabolic disease,
Yeah.
they didn't have cardiovascular disease,
Right.
degeneration. So when you think about it, I tell my clients, like, think about your great 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 grandmother, right? My family's Polish. We're from this very cold area. And so I imagine my great 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 grandmother in her kitchen with a fire in the fireplace, and she's cooking food all day. So her family is smelling the food. Her hands are touching the food. She's very much an immersive part of this preparation. And so her digestion is going to be better. Her thoughts about food aren't going to be convoluted because food is food.
Yeah.
Food is not anything, to be feared or, to be vilified
Yeah.
as, kind of social media and really like, big ag, big pharma, they all kind of make it that way today.
Mhm.
Food is not it's our friend.
Yes.
It's not our enemy.
Yes.
Right? And that preparation, that action of lovingly preparing and being grateful for your food just is so powerful in rewiring your limbic system and your nervous system, and that prepares you for better digestion.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, food. What else do we need to talk about today in terms of hormones? Exercise,
Let's do it, girl.
movement, and I will fully admit I used to be a cardio whore. Like,
Same, girl. Same.
oh my gosh. What's crazy is even just 5 years ago, I would wake up, I would go run 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 miles. That's called crazy.
Yes. I never did that. Just see.
But I would literally like, I was a runner, so I would just cardio, 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 and I always, like, had this fear of, like, gaining weight if I didn't get my
Sure.
run in.
Sure.
And then life happens and, you have injuries and then you have starting businesses and then you realize, like, okay, like, I can't go and spend 90 minutes, 2 hours running and all that. And I started to, like, just work out 20 minutes a day and lift weights, and I'm, like, literally within 5 pounds of where I used to be. So can you talk to the importance of, one, what exercises should we be doing? How long should we be exercising? How is this impacting our hormones? The 411 on movement, hormones, and exercise.
No, I'll just give a caveat. So obviously I'm not a trainer, I'm an FDN, but exercise, and I love that you keep saying movement because
Yes.
you are reframing it for so many women. Because if I tell them like I want you to exercise, they're like, F it, I'm not
I know, they're like,
exercising.
"Have to go to the gym." I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna do that either, okay?
But everyone wants to like we want bodies that can move,
Yeah.
right? And what I love about functional wellness, functional health is that it's this concept of bringing your body from a state of dysfunction to a state of function. And when we think about it, like a lot of us have families, we have jobs, we like to be active, we have friends, like you want a body that represents your desires and your whys really well, right? And so why punish your body when you could instead train your body, love your body, nourish your body to
Yes.
make it work for you?
Yes.
And so same thing, like in college, even after all 4 of my babies, I would do 2 workouts a day, like tie a bow in the morning, tie tie a bow, go to like a spin class in the afternoons. I'd walk as much as I could. And it was one of the things that put me into early perimenopause. It was too much for my body to handle. That coupled with too much dieting, essentially, just kind of broke my hormones. And
Yeah.
so I tell women, we want your body to be functional. And the research is very, very clear, especially for perimenopausal women. And there's not a lot of research on perimenopausal women.
There's just not a lot of research on women.
Women, just But particularly this age group, this sex is very underrepresented in the research. So we're looking at research, but we're also looking at, experiments and what's working for women in the space right now.
Yeah.
The two things that are unequivocally helpful for women in their 30s and 40s and 50s are walking 8 to 10,000 steps a day and lifting heavy weights 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It is really hard to get some of my, type A perfectionistic women off of the cardio train, like so hard. And I mean, I love small businesses in Bakersfield, but I don't love Orange Theory.
Yeah.
I don't love CrossFit unless you are a 20-year-old dude.
Yeah.
If you're a dude,
Yeah.
and you got plenty of testosterone, like you don't have an infighting
Yeah.
with them, then go. Like
Then we're happy to have you go lift weights and be buff. You do you. That's good. We appreciate a man that does that. We absolutely do.
But for women who are already underfed, overstressed, overtired, it's not doing their bodies any favors. And I'll ask my women, I'm like, so how's that working for you? Like, they're like, well, I go to Orange Theory every morning. I get up at 4:30 and go at 5. I'm like, how's that working for you? Their periods are a mess.
Yeah.
They
Well, they're
are
coming
20 pounds overweight. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. They're like, I guess not so great.
Right. Yeah, but it's like what we've been taught, right? Like it's just like, yeah, I know it's so fascinating. And I think when we do switch that exercise to mobility and to movement, like I'll be like going through an airport with my kids, and it's we've all been there where we're rushing.
Yeah.
And I always feel bad for like the person that is like struggling to pull their luggage and they're breathing hard and like they're like sweating when they get on the plane. And it was like literally like less than a 5-minute walk or 3-minute walk or run, and they can't even do it. And so I think that when we think in terms of functionality, it's like if there was an emergency, can your body perform?
Love it.
And that's how we should be definitely training. And I was 26 years old when I stopped having a period, and I was running and racing, and at this time I was like, this is odd, and I didn't have any kids. And I go to the doctor, and I remember my sister, when I told her, I'm like, yeah, I went to the doctor and they told me I'm perimenopause. And I'm like, that's weird. So they like put me on this pill, progesterone. And they told me to take it. And because they told me if I don't take this and I don't do this, then I won't ever be able to have kids. And my sister was like, girl, like she was pregnant. She's like, we all get pregnant in our family. Don't listen to that. I'm like, well, I was pregnant within a week. Like I was pregnant. Like that's how Lewis came along. But literally I went from not having a period, and I believe it was progesterone. I got put on this pill for, I think it was like 10 days. I don't even remember really, but whatever. I took it, and then all of a sudden I was pregnant, and I remember going back in to the nurse practitioner, and I'm like, I am pregnant. Like you told me I couldn't get pregnant. I am pregnant. And she literally took my file and she sat it down, and she's like, I can't believe this. Cause she was looking at my numbers from my blood work, and she's like, how did you get pregnant? You couldn't even drop an egg with this blood work. I'm like, well, you know me.
I do everything well.
I mean, in case you didn't. Even when you're telling me I can't have babies, I will show you. Okay. But it was like, it was a shock. It was crazy. But I think too, like, sometimes it's more like a little bit goes a long way. So I think also like I've seen the other end where women are put on all of these hormones, and they come see me and they are a mess.
Right.
They're like, I'm on this and I'm on this and I'm on this and my SSRI and my birth control and hormones. And I'm like, this is like
nuts.
It is crazy.
Yes.
So how do you weave through, because obviously you and I both, we don't prescribe, we don't diagnose, full disclaimer, we're not medical doctors, but how do you navigate the amount of drugs that people are put on, and yet they are still having the same issues that the drugs are quote unquote solving?
Right. And then on top of that, they're put on other drugs to get the side effects on the first drugs that they were on.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, I say, but not the great gift.
Right. You're right. And yes, of course, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. I always tell clients, like, be working with a medical doctor. Everything that we do, you inform your doctor about.
And your pharmacist.
And your pharmacist, right?
People don't talk to their pharmacist. And they ask you every time that you pick up a medication, they will ask you, do you want to talk to your pharmacist and check yes or no? And I think that people should be talking to the pharmacist, because like when I have clients come in and they're on like multiple meds, I'm like, have you ever talked to your pharmacist on how these all interact with each other? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's a chemistry experiment. And that's what they specialize in. I'm like, I would talk to your pharmacist.
Smart.
Yeah.
Well, they just don't know. They think they're trusting their physician. They're like,
Right.
well, my doctor prescribed it for me. So obviously, like, my doctor must know about it. But I will see women who are going to their OBGYN, they're going to an endocrinologist, they're going to their
None of those doctors are talking to each
No,
other.
it's not like they're all in a room together hoarding lunch talking about you and all your medications, right? They're like, well, it's a crapshoot at that point. I will say, like, a lot of, like, usually my clients are kind of weaning off medications to begin with. Like, by the time they get to someone like me or you, you know, they're probably taking ownership of some of their own health. But I will also say most of my clients are on some thyroid medication, usually a synthetic, you know, levothyroxine, steroid, something like that. A lot of them are on, you know, the pill, right? So they come to me, or at least with a history of the pill, generally 10, 20, 30 years of being on the pill. So that's one of the first things I will encourage them to talk with their doctor about. Is there an alternative form of birth control that we could use to kind of like, you know, move away from this, a vasectomy, you know, the rhythm method, anything else we can do? Some of them are open and some of them just aren't. Like, they don't, I mean, my husband was great. He got a vasectomy after 4 kids. Actually, before, this is another story, but he found out I was pregnant with my fourth kid. 2 weeks later after his vasectomy, we're like, surprise!
Oh my gosh.
Good times, but I love my chase. So those two things, I mean, I think that thyroid hormone, very important for women to be on. So that is a medication I fully endorse, just because women, a lot of them need it, right? Same thing with like bioidentical estrogen, bioidentical progesterone, bioidentical testosterone, those hormones, like I'm definitely on board with that. But as we say in functional medicine, you know, is you know, sleeplessness a sleeping pill deficiency, right? Is your depression an SSRI deficiency? Like, you know, is your high blood pressure a TARCA deficiency? It's not, right? Like, there are underlying issues. And so as we work to correct those underlying issues, oftentimes the body just won't have need for those medications anymore. And that's something, again, to, you know, talk about with your doctor. But I have seen, you know, women who are on, you know, blood sugar, like metformin or something like that. If we balance their blood sugar too quickly and they're on metformin, they're going to have low blood sugar. And that's a problem too. Which is why, you know, people should always be consulting their physician. But the beauty of the body is it's made to be in balance. Right? Stripping away those medications when you have proper diet and exercise and, you know, stress management and even like, you know, supplements if you need them, the body starts to function better and doesn't need all of those crutches of medication.
Oh my gosh. I always say, like, when we go back to restoring our foundations of health, which vitamins, minerals, sleep, movement, all of that, you really won't have many issues. You know, and when we have these deficiencies, especially when it comes to nutrition, it's like trying to build a house without all the raw materials. And we cannot do that.
Like, low down that house of straw.
Yes. And for you, like having babies back to back to back, it's like, at what point did you ever replenish your nutrients?
Never. They would have never taught. And I cannot believe, I mean, it's the classic case of, if I knew, you know, then what I know now, I didn't. And that's why I think we're both so passionate, you know, about helping other people, is because we don't want anyone else to go through what we want.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I see women all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I have 3 babies, or I have 4, or I have 5, or I have 2. And it's like, okay, and at what point did you replenish your nutrients? And they're like, huh? What? It's like, yeah, you literally, like, not only did you have a child, and then you breastfed a child, then you got pregnant again, and then you did that again, and then you did that again, you know, and it's like there becomes a deficiency. So we have to replenish that.
Absolutely. And that's so interesting too, because that doctor I brought up, Weston A. Price, one of the other things he found in these, you know, indigenous people groups is they had this automatic kind of family planning control that went on. They would not allow young couples to get pregnant within 2 years of having their previous baby. So it wasn't, you know, like, we won't let you, but it was just kind of culturally,
it was like a knowing not to do that.
They wanted healthy progeny, right? They wanted a healthy people group. And so they really protected their young women and their young men.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that there's a huge need for just foundations of health to be restored in this country, with, I mean, across the board, young people, older people. I mean, I know I see more and more children, and it's incredible. Fatty liver going on, deficiencies in nutrients, microbiome disruption, and it's like, what is happening in the world? So anyways, okay. So what would be some last minute tips that you would give our listeners?
Yes, I would just say, don't take yourself so seriously, right? We did in our 20s and 30s.
Yes.
What can you do now to bring balance to your life? And, as I like to do, and this is a little bit woo, but in the morning I will, ask my body, what do you need today?
Mm,
Do you need a 5 a.m. workout? Like, do you need an acai bowl, or do you need like some time grounding? Do you need
yeah.
some time quiet? Do you need some time with breath work? Do you need good food? Do you need to cancel things on your calendar?
Mhm.
Like, don't be an enemy of your body. Really learn to work with and love your body because it really wants to love you back.
Yes.
And so check in with your body a lot and really see, like, hands, what do you need today? Ovaries, what do you need
Yes.
today? Like, heart, what do you need today? And then take that time to really, respect your body just the way you do for your kids or your husband or your best friend or your mom. Your body is the one body you get. And so do things for it that will extend your longevity and make you feel good in the future and not just for this moment.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for joining me today. Such great nuggets of knowledge.